Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Classic Games Weekly Discussion Podcast. This is a big week, guys.
A big week.
Like,
Like,
Yeah.
way too much going on. There's been like 4 gaming conventions, major news announcements. PAX Online was happening for the past couple weeks. Like, things are bopping.
and so much of that is dwarfed by the fact that we finally have some big news regarding next gen.
Yes, we will be able to play Monster Hunter Rise on Switch in March.
That is the most important piece of news. Now everybody have a good day.
Wrap it up.
We did it. We won.
It's really cool. We finally have most of the details that you would want for the console release. I don't know what else you would want between now and November. I mean, an extended launch list, I assume. But there's like one or two things that people have tried to confirm via interviews, like backwards compatibility on the PS5 is one that people are talking about, at least for the PS1, PS2, and PS3 games. But we'll get into that here in a second. For now, let's just talk about like how have you all been? I mean, it's been I think 2 weeks since we did the last recording.
Don't buy a house.
Don't do it.
Don't buy a house and dive into your first year of homeschool at the same time.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
a
right.
lot.
Yeah, that's got to be rough, man.
In fact, until the house, so fingers crossed, we buy this house. Until about a week or two after that, we're cutting back to about 3 days a week of school, just because stress levels and everything, keeping up on that, and freelance work and packing and the house and things like that. And then we'll probably take a week or two off that week of the sale, just to get things sorted and put into the room. But
now you guys are specifically homeschooling. Like, you don't have to stick to a particular schedule or anything, right?
It's not distance learning. It is legit full-on homeschool.
Cool.
Which I think we made the right call, because we aren't waiting for a teacher to upload an assignment or a video. We don't have to make sure she's at her desk at a specific time to join a Zoom call.
And you're already pretty technology savvy, so you don't have to worry about teachers like not knowing how to do certain things or this and that.
Most of them actually, the distance learning in the spring with finishing up her kindergarten went pretty well, actually.
Okay.
But what it really came down to is it's just like, all right, well, she's done with her reading lesson, and we have to wait till 1 p.m. to do her math lesson when it gets uploaded.
Oh, so you can save time if you guys are just doing all your lessons.
That's part of it. So, like, we can just move straight into whatever's next, and we can get it done within 3 hours. Some of my friends, they say that their kid has to be in front of the computer and in front of their device at like 10 a.m. and they're not off until like 2 or 3.
Right.
With
that's
like
a long time
with
to
one
be
lunch
in one
break
place.
and with like 2 5-minute breaks kind of like in there. And it's just like, yeah, you have to be there for the Zoom class meetings. You have to be there. And we figured that if distance learning is going to be basically homeschooling with extra steps, we have the privilege in our life to be able to put homeschool on the table as a legitimate option. I work from home already. I can juggle that with running homeschool. Not every family has that choice. Not every family also has a spouse that is a teacher who knows what they're looking at when they're looking at, curriculum for a 6-year-old.
That's true. Yeah.
And so,
Sam does she do elementary? Like, what's her?
She's a 4th grade. She's a 4th grade teacher.
Up to 4th.
So she's pretty knowledgeable in what she's looking at, and we are also near one of the only brick and mortar homeschool supply stores in the country.
Wow.
So we drove 20 minutes to north.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Yeah, so, and it's not really a thing. It's the only one in the Midwest. Like, you have so when we have access to something like that where you can go and look at supplies with your hands instead of ordering it on Amazon, and Sam had already done a ton of research, so she knew exactly what she was looking for. And when we got there was a line out the door. Because I think a lot of people are looking into it as an option this year.
That would make a lot of sense, yeah. If I
And
was a parent, I would do homeschooling personally.
but most of the people there were there to browse or to see. And so I just asked. I asked one of the employees, I'm like, if there's an employee available, could we just give you a list of the specific things we came to pick up? Because we already know what we want and make our purchase outside so people don't have to wait for us and we're not in anybody's way. You can take care of us faster. And so, we were only there for like 20 minutes, and I know some people have been waiting there a while, but I'm just like, we did our research already. We know exactly what we want, and ultimately this is saving everybody time. Mm-hmm. Like we don't have, we didn't even have to enter
the amount
the
of
store.
interactions and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so it just worked out really well, and I recognize the sheer amount of privilege that is even an option, and that we can do it. A single mom, no way could they unless they've got like the most flexible job on the planet and they work from home, would they be able to legitimately do homeschool to consider it? They likely have to go to work, and if they're working from home, they likely have to be working, and so they kind of rely on their kids going to school or to daycare to get that taken care of.
Finding work is tough right now too, because I'm still looking, and I did at least one interview, so at least I got one call back, and then tomorrow afternoon I have to go to a thing to get the rest of my information to the Amazon system. I don't know. It's like a warehouse job, so I assume if you apply, you get it, but I couldn't tell you.
Not a clue.
It's worth a shot, right? So I have to go down to their office, I guess, sometime tomorrow.
I want to say my step sibling works at one, or he did work at one. So.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. So I might end up in factory work for a little bit, which, whatever. That'd be fine. I think the shifts are like 4 10-hours rather than like a 5-day shift. So 3-day weekend would be kind of cool.
Yes, I love those kind of shifts.
But yeah, so that's what my between that and so PAX Online was going on, and there's one happening this weekend called the Game Devs of Color Expo that I missed out on because this weekend is basically shot. But so that's going on. There's a lot of really cool developers there. I think they might even have their own Nintendo Direct style video floating around somewhere. And then so most of my energy was in PAX Online, and I did 2 or 3 interviews. We've got one with the community manager and just overall cool guy over at Infernax, and he's with it's gonna bother me now. I gotta look that up real quick. But so we did that one. We did an interview with the devs of BPM, the game that I really, really liked. So that review is available. There's a video on our website. It was the guy at Berserk Studio for Infernax that we had, Hunter, and that interview's been done for a while. So we did that one. And there's another one we did too. And tomorrow we have one with the devs of Weaving Tide. So there's a lot of interview stuff I have recorded. And I'm doing another one tomorrow.
Awesome.
So lots of cool stuff in that front. And then review-wise, we've got, of course, BPM just went live. Mortal Shell should be sometime this week, hopefully. And then
I am considering doing the early access for Baldur's Gate 3.
That would be cool. That's coming up soon.
That's at the end of the month.
Is it?
10 days.
I forgot about it.
And they built into the game, as far as I know, is some Twitch integration.
Is that going to be in the early access build?
I think so. They were talking about it. So I don't know if that was... I'm pretty sure they were saying it was going to be available, but the Twitch integration involves hey, the chat chooses your conversation option in a choice in the game. And so I thought that was a pretty cool out if they have that integrated out of right away, could lead to some really interesting playthroughs. You've already beaten it or whatever, and you want to just have some fun with it. So you stream it and you let people choose your route, which I think
I'm excited to see how Baldur's Gate turns out, because that's such a big franchise in the hands of the right studio. So we'll see. But when's that supposed to drop then?
Last day of September, the 30th or the 31st. I don't remember which.
The 30th.
Yeah. Okay. So
Cool.
like 10 days, but that is like right when I move. So I don't. I might hold off on it until I'm a little bit more settled. Um,
Right.
but
There's a lot
Zach,
of games popular right now. I've been watching Grand Pooh Bear play a lot of Spelunky 2. It just came out on the PlayStation. And dude, that game is so cool. It's like a roguelite, but it's really platformer based and it's hard as balls. Everything can kill you. And the
Yes.
game like combos you, so if you get hit by one thing, you're stunned for a little bit, usually no matter what you get hit with. And so you're like as soon as you get hit, your body goes flying and might get hit by something else. And so you really have to plan, you have to strategize, you have to have super quick reflexes. And Pooh Bear is like one of the better Spelunky players out there. And so watching his stream has been fascinating because he's not looking up guides hardly at all. I think he's going in completely blind. And so he's like learning as he plays, and it's just fascinating to see it happen. Hopefully,
well,
I'll get a hold of that game. I really want to play it.
that kind of reminds me of watching those like Mario Maker relay races that for like GDQ.
Yeah.
Because they have to like you see their process as they break down the levels, and they're watching their teammates like get as far as they do or whatever. And they're like, okay, so we now know this or whatever, and then all of a sudden it just clicks for one of them, and they just whoop, and it's done.
I think I have the first Spelunky on PlayStation. It was an early PS Plus reward.
I have no idea.
So I might even have it. But so that game fascinates me because it's like developed by a very, very small team, and all of the like characters and blocks and stuff have particular rules. And so basically what you're learning is the game's like rule set, right? And from there you can judge things as they happen. And I don't know, it just looks really good. So I hope to at least pick that up at some point.
Yeah, that is cool. Zach, you had an interesting event happen recently.
Did I?
Well, you got hooked up to a computer and then told to
Yeah.
Oh
sleep.
yeah.
How did that go?
Yeah. It went well. I don't have any of my results back. They said it'd be like 10 business days or something.
Okay.
But they did mention that I moved around a whole lot. So that's a thing.
Interesting. Yeah, I remember when my mom did something for sleep apnea to see if she had it, but she's like, I'm in uncomfortable clothing. I have like the world's thinnest blanket, a not comfortable pillow, and I'm on like a hospital bed, and I've got all these things hooked up to me, and they're like, yeah, just go to sleep like normal.
Yeah,
right.
right.
No, this is an old building in town they have, and they've been doing the studies out of for a while, but it's basically like an office with what would have been 2 office rooms turned into 2 bedrooms.
Okay.
Oh, so it's like an actual bedroom.
Oh yeah. There's like a TV, full bed. I mean, it wasn't like great, but it was like
Right.
like no worse than like a weird hotel bed at the beach. And good blankets, thick blankets, in stand. Like I had whatever I needed, except
So
for
you
once
were
I was
just
hooked
more
up.
comfortable than one would expect.
Yeah.
Nice.
Uh,
That's awesome. So hopefully that comes back and you learn a little bit about your sleep because that sleep's important.
Yeah, I should probably do one. But
I don't know. Yeah, I probably should too at some point. But you know,
I have a high likelihood of having sleep apnea, and then combine that with my insomnia. I don't typically get a good night's sleep.
I don't either. I was up super late last night, but I had some like stomach issues that kept me awake.
Yeah, that's
so
what
that
you
was
were
really
saying.
annoying.
So Zach, what games have you been playing?
So still been playing some Neverwinter. Cool. I started the new season of Fortnite with the guys just recently.
Is that the Marvel stuff still, or they rotated out of that?
The Marvel, it's like an actual Marvel season now. It's not like little bits. Like it's they have like some in-game comic reading that you can do where Thor is the Herald of Thunder for Galactus, and the story of the season is Thor was leading Galactus off to something, and whatever events happened between seasons, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
Or like maybe whatever happened between the chapters, I'm not real sure, but attracted Galactus's attention, and he's coming through the dimensions to come eat the world of Fortnite.
Right. Yeah, I heard the gist of that, I think, in some of the podcasts I was listening to.
Yeah. No, I mean it's pretty cool. So
Hmm.
Thor lands, summons a bunch of people, and everybody starts to try to get into a fight. And I guess nobody remembers a lot of stuff.
So
Huh.
I
So the
feel,
season's about everybody getting their memories back to team
huh.
up to do stuff.
So I'm not like a Fortnite fan like at all. I think I've played it twice.
Yeah.
But I will recognize that they have been pretty good at like doing some interesting and cool stuff for their seasons, like mixing it up just enough, or introducing something, or a high demand like item set for the season or rewards or whatever.
Yeah,
They've
they
like
seem to
been
take
really on
care of
top
their
of it.
communities.
Yeah. Um, I mean, there's some like cheating stuff that gets through. That happens a lot of times as people get banned, but I mean, it just happens a bunch because then they can just kind of like float their IP on a different VPN and then suddenly
Oh
be
yeah.
back in with a new account doing stuff. So
That
that's
sounds
kind of
like too
shitty.
much work.
See, I run into it a lot though. Like it's not
Mhm.
like well, we run into hackers all the time.
Well, I guess that's slightly more understandable than hacking Fall Guys.
Oh, that's so dumb.
Yeah, so
They've been catching a lot more cheaters here recently, and apparently I read an article they took all the people they had identified as cheaters and put them all in the same match, and so they kept queuing up with cheaters,
see that's
which I
great.
find to be hilarious.
What there was another game that did that, wasn't it? Was it one of the CODs?
Probably,
It
yeah.
might have been Call of Duty. It might have also, I think, either League of Legends or Dota may have done something like that.
No, it was a shooter.
Was it?
Yeah,
Overwatch,
Yeah, it was,
maybe?
could have
you
been.
know what? I bet Overwatch did it too. But I want to say it was one of like COD style shooters that
Okay.
was real big fairly recently. Just had a giant pool of cheaters and wouldn't put them out of a pool
Great.
except for with
You
each
can
other.
cheat if you want to. Just know that
Everybody else is now too.
yeah.
Have fun.
You know what would be like a real kick in the pants is after the hacking scene or whatever has established like their hacks and cheats and stuff. If they just plugged in a mode that just activated all of those cheats for free without any effort, and then you would just enable cheats, and then you would be selected, and so you could either get pinged for cheating and then thrown in those ones anyway, or just activate cheating and go back in like choose to check out those servers and what that cheating is like, but basically let them do all that work to cheat and then just give it to the communities for free.
That would be interesting.
There's a lot of ways you can do that. The community management's fascinating, and right now I'm doing some very minor community management work for a mobile game. And if you want to follow that, go check out Cattopia Rush on Twitter and stuff. And so it's so cool right now to kind of like see how things are built in a way and kind of see how the sausage is made, so to speak. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just kind of cool to see like how you can react to certain community members or use that just general feeling to make decisions. It's cool. I like games from all angles.
I like games
Right?
too. What have you been playing, Alex?
Well, other than Fortnite, what have you been doing, Zach?
Fall Guys, of course.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
as
we've
of
had some
today,
fun with
Among
that.
Us.
Yes. Dude, Among Us was way more fun than I imagined it would be. Like, you watch people play it and you're like, oh, that's fun to watch. But then you actually play it and you're like, wow, this is fun to play.
Yeah, it was fun to watch. I tuned into the stream here for a little bit, and it was pretty entertaining. It's a game that I kind of wish, like, it would be interesting to watch a multi-stream of, or like a really big, like, presentation of it, where you
Right,
you
yeah.
can see multiple players' angles at a time, and then watch it, like watch different people, the way they react to, finding out they're the imposter, or someone witnesses or figures out who it is. And like, only seeing Alex's was really interesting. It'd be fun to see
Yeah, because then
everyone
it
else's.
keeps you guessing, too.
Yeah.
It was fun. We definitely had a lot of just like really silly rounds, and even on my like second round I had ever played, I got imposter and won, and I'm pretty proud of that.
I think I
and
saw
we
that.
had Himpaku on, who's been on the podcast, and like he's in the community. He's a really cool speedrunner guy. But Himpaku also played with us, brought some buddies, and it was just really good.
Yeah, we learned Himpaku's really good at Among Us.
He's clever.
He's really clever.
I think it's fascinating that in a short amount of time, 2 basically party games came out that feature very similar, like, overall character, like,
right.
I guess base. Like there's these like bean people with like white, but with Among Us it's like their space helmet window or whatever.
So what's interesting about Among Us is that game came out in 2018. It just recently got popular because of streamers picking it up and it being shared around the League of Legends community, especially.
Do you think maybe its popularity jumped up because of Fall Guys, because of the similar character? Like people saw it and were like, "Oh, what's this? This looks like Fall Guys." And
there was a small community for it, so I think word of mouth just eventually reached the right person. Because when Soda, I did some research on this, and so I think when it really jumped in popularity, people like Soda Poppin' was bringing it to play with like Pokemon and such, and so from there it just kind of exploded, and that's where it's been for a while. And they even like the devs are so excited about it, they've confirmed that they're going to make a sequel. They just don't know what that's going to look like, and just the general that sort of game style has always been popular because Town of Salem was popular for a bit, and Werewolf and Mafia, and so it just makes sense that this is popular now, I guess. Yeah. And people want to talk to each other more than ever.
Yeah, no, and it's such a great like being able to chat with each other, like because you have chat, figure everything out, throw shade, laugh about things, talk your way out of a bad situation, then it's quiet time.
Yes.
And then you go right back to it.
I was impressed with how fast it moved.
It's very fast. That's the one complaint I have about it, is it's a little too fast for me.
I think it was great. The pacing kept me just moving. And, well, the thing is, for me, I kept finishing my tasks. So I was like, I don't know what I actually do. So I'm just going to follow
keep tabs, watch the cams.
Yeah, well, there was
real quick, I do want to shout out a game that is made by New Blood, the guys that we always have fun with. But their game, Unfortunate Spaceman, is basically like Among Us as a first-person shooter. And so that's free to play now. So if you're into Among Us, maybe give that a try. I'm downloading it now. I've not played it yet, but they have a funny URL that's amonguSwithguns.com, I think, and it leads you to the Unfortunate Spaceman page.
But it's interesting how quickly you become invested in each game, because you would like I would be watching Alex, and from only see his perspective, and then all of a sudden it would be like someone would call an emergency meeting. And 3 people would already be dead. Like, you'd be like, oh, dang.
And seeing the reaction of, like, me getting killed or something, and me, like, I'm like, oh, maybe it's... Oh, Rakimdar was there, too. We got to shout out Rakimdar. He's also been on the show. Does a lot of, like, card game-related YouTube streams and stuff. But Rakimdar, like, at one point, I thought it might have been him. And then our buddy Andrew Peggs from Marooners Rock came up behind me and killed me. And I'm like, oh, no. I had no idea.
He had a couple of good imposter runs.
I totally get why Among Us is popular, though. Like, just even the 3 hours we played today and watching some streamers last night, I totally understand it.
Well, I know you were complaining that it was fast, but I think that works to its credit, because in other games with asymmetrical gameplay like that, say Friday the 13th or Dead by Daylight, those games can take a while. And
sometimes,
when it's faster, it increases the rate at which someone gets to be the imposter. And so when a game only takes 2 minutes versus 15 minutes, you get to try the different roles. You get to experience the different things faster. And
that's true.
You get those, and then those moments of pausing where you're like, the goal is to have a conversation. Those are interesting because you're either trying to defend yourself or accuse someone else, or just, not get noticed, depending on whatever strategy you're going for. But I think because of its speed, it like, it might, whether or not it has staying power is a question, but its rise to popularity is because it's got that asymmetrical gameplay that is pretty popular right now. And people want those like different experiences because games can handle them a lot easier than they used to be able to.
Yes. And it's I don't know. I've always really enjoyed that. I mean, I loved games like Left 4 Dead, and then they added in the symmetrical like Left 4 Dead 2, where you could have a team of zombies.
Yeah.
Right.
But you all did different things. Like all the humans had about the same power, but
I
all
really
the
need to try
zombies had
that
something
Resident
different.
Evil one too that came out, Project Resistance or whatever. Resident Evil
yeah.
Resistance.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I have it. I just haven't played it. The
Uh,
only thing that I would love for Among Us to add to this particular version is built-in voice integration. And honestly, if they could make a deal with Discord, I think that's the right call because everybody already uses Discord anyways for it.
People should be using Discord for so many more things. Like everybody's hyped on Zoom, but Zoom blows
I don't like it.
really bad.
I always heard it was like a big security issue too.
There is
like,
a big security issue, but it is easier. Like, I can imagine that particularly for like an older employee, convincing them to create an account and install and set up Discord versus just click this link and it'll open up a Zoom window.
Yeah.
Like, when you're just like, maybe for long term, or if your company's built around the idea of distance work, definitely go with another option like Skype or Discord. But when it comes, like, people were scrambling and Zoom was easy. And, you know, because it was easy, it created security risks. But, you know, I think that risk to a lot of people is worth it because of the ease.
It's just so simple. Yeah.
You do not need to create another account to get it set up. It's just there.
So we have been playing a lot of multiplayer here recently with the three of us, and then today our community, which was really cool. But I've also been playing some random little things on Switch. And so one of the games that I'm playing, and I think I'm about done with it because I've gotten about all I can get out of it, is Hot Shot Racing. It's very similar to, say, like an Outrun back in the day, or a pole position, or even like a Ridge Racer. It's a low poly racer. Is that at all related
to Hot Shots Golf?
Wait, what is it?
Hot Shots Golf?
No, that's a different, whole different thing. But Hot Shot Racing is on Switch. It's low poly. It's very fast paced, and you do have to meet those check marks as you go, right? And so I've actually been having a lot of fun with it, and I normally don't like racing games. And so I think that speaks a lot to just how well built the game is. There's not a whole lot going on. Like there's the standard races, there's an arcade mode, there's a mode where if you don't reach a checkpoint, you explode, and the checkpoints are really tight. And then there's a cops and robbers mode where if you get destroyed, you turn into a cop and have to go chase the other guys. And so those are kind of cool, but just like the main Grand Prix, going through, playing as different characters, picking up different cars, like it feels really tight. And I was getting rather good at it for a while.
Nice.
And so that's been super cool. I still haven't finished the review for Inmost, which is that narrative game I talked about last time that's done by the Stardew Valley people, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And so it just recently got an update. I think I'm going to go back into the game, see how that update has changed, especially just like the flow of the game a little bit, because it's only like a 3 to 4 hour experience, right? But I want to go back into it, make sure that, you know, I feel what I feel about it, and then write that review. And then I just started last night Ori and the Will of the Wisps because it just dropped on Switch.
Yeah, that was like a surprise announcement, wasn't it? That was like, hey, this game's coming to Switch. Oh, also it's today.
Yeah, so that was in one of the like Switch partner third-party videos. A lot of things came out recently. And so I actually got an email in my like professional email, and they're like, hey, this is out now if you want to write about it. And I'm like, well, while you're here, if you got a review code, we'll take it. And if you want to do an interview, let me know. And so she's like, we'll just set you up with a review code. Here, have at it. And so that's what I played. Initial impressions, I didn't like Ori and the Blind Forest that much. Like, I understood why people like it. But this one immediately feels a lot better because you have like a new way to attack. And so you have a sword rather than blasty balls.
Yeah, I'm about 40 to 50% of the way through the first game. And I liked it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, definitely they're like gorgeous, but like it's a little more flash than actual substance to me.
Yeah, it's very cute.
But Will of the Wisps, I think, had some level design assistance from Milton, who was the guy who did the Another Metroid 2 remake, who we had on the show way back when. And so I actually want to message him and be like, what parts did you actually do for Will of the Wisps? Because it's just interesting to me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, because he was like, I can't tell you.
Yeah, because he was on a new project, and then we found out later that he was going to work on Will o' the Wisps, and that took 2 or 3 years. And so I wonder what he ended up doing. It's cool though. I don't know if I think I'm gonna like it more than the first one, but I still think that it's very much visuals over actual mechanics, and some of the mechanics feel not so great. It's very influenced by Hollow Knight. This one, like you have three abilities, you choose different badges to make your character, so to speak. So I don't know, but I'm playing it, and I shouldn't be long before I finished it.
The action Metroidvania.
Yeah, it's gorgeous, and it looks pretty okay on the Switch. I know it would look better on an Xbox, of course, but like it runs fine. Frame rate's great.
Yeah, and if you're playing like in handheld mode or whatever, just like sitting in your comfy chair or in bed or something, like what a great experience.
Throw on some headphones. It's a great way to zone out because the music is just amazing. It's got really, really good music. And then I re-downloaded Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate because we had the Monster Hunter news.
I'm super tempted because it's on sale for $15 right now. I'm really tempted to get it, but all I'm thinking about is I recently got World on PC, and I haven't put a ton of time into it, and I want to. And we've got another Monster Hunter coming out on Switch in like 6 months, and so I think I might just wait. If it was like a year ago, might have been more worth it, but at this point, I don't know if it's worth picking up another Monster Hunter right now when I'm already playing one regularly.
That's fair. Yeah. And so we're getting Monster Hunter Rise in March, and then in the summer we're getting Monster Hunter Stories 2, both of which are for Switch. Stories 2 is more of a traditional like Dragon Quest-y RPG, and it's very cutesy and very narrative driven, obviously. So I plan on getting that as well, and there's Amiibo that they're releasing for it, and I want those Amiibo.
Oh, cool. I kind of was wondering. I was thinking about that recently. I haven't really seen too much Amiibo news recently.
No, I'm considering selling some of mine, but I don't know if I want to. It's like one of the last things I'll sell.
They make pretty good shelf candy though.
Yeah,
so it's like if you got like a cool home office or a streaming space, and you want to like flare it up.
I really want to put like the top shelves along the top of the walls and just line the top of the shelves with them. I think that'd be cool.
I only have one, and it was the one that came with Twilight Princess HD remake.
Oh, I have like 60. I have a lot of Amiibo.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot.
Kim was into collecting them too. Like we would get them cheap at like Target and Toys R Us, and we'd find certain characters, and it was a fun hunt for a long time. So hopefully I'd like to get back into that one of these days.
So, what else are you playing? It seems like a lot of Switch stuff.
Mostly Switch. I did some demo stuff. So I played a game called Chained Echoes, which is a JRPG kind of thing, but it's made by JRPG fans in Germany. That's one of the people that I interviewed, was the Chained Echoes team. And so that game is really cool. It feels kind of like Secret of Mana meets Chrono Trigger and a touch of Xenogears maybe. And so like it's a story, it's a very like traditional kind of setup, right? Like it's a fantasy world, but the twist is there's mechs. And the mechs are teased in this one, but you can actually like run around as a mech at some point and fight in those mechs. And the combat felt great. Like I really like the combat system.
That sounds cool.
Yeah, and I played the demo for 30XX as well, the Mega Man style roguelike.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I interviewed that dev. And so 30XX feels great so far. Like it's really tight. They're really excited about doing certain things. Like there's a way you can lock your seed and play in a quote unquote traditional Mega Man style thing where you have like lives, and then you can just keep the same levels over and over again till you finish it, right? But it's a very hard game, at least in its current form. And I'm excited to see how it develops. It seems like they have so many good ideas, and they've learned so much by listening to the community and being in early access in 20XX that I think it's going to be one to look out for. Especially if you like Mega Man X. Definitely keep an eye on it.
Sounds good to me. So, for myself, if that wraps it up for you.
Yeah, okay. Pretty much.
I kind of surprised myself. Well, so I was out of curiosity and novelty. with Game Pass, Flight Simulator is available, and I've got a pretty decent machine. Not top of the end, but it runs Red Dead Redemption 2 and some other like high end games, and I figured give it a shot, and it is a fascinating experience. Like the real appeal of being able to fly anywhere on the planet is huge. Like
definitely.
In the past you would be limited to like areas, or you could fly across areas, but it would just be like generic like landscapes beneath you. And this is like drawing satellite data to generate the landscape and to generate buildings. And so hopping in a plane and going to the closest like small like local rinky-dink airport near my hometown, taking off and flying over the town I grew up in and finding my mom's house or the cabin that my grandparents have is a surreal experience, seeing it from a totally different perspective. And like, oh, so that's like what the shape of the lake is, or this from this perspective, the hometown I grew up in is a little bit bigger than I thought. Just like little things like that, and like seeing all these different things, and then like going in the complete opposite direction. Like earlier today I flew around Honduras and Beijing, China, and Tokyo, and then I went and flew around the pyramids of Giza and the Sphinx. And so it was just like
something that you'll likely never see in your lifetime.
Right. So just like hopping in this little prop plane and just like going for it, and like getting a view and perspective on our planet in a way that I'll never likely pilot an airplane in my life.
Right.
And outside of flying over these things, like I could go to the pyramids of Giza. I will never ever fly a plane over the pyramids of Giza. And so it was just like, and for some of these like bigger, more well-known landmarks like the pyramids, they've gone in and added geometry and higher res textures, so they look pretty nice. Larger city areas, they've gone in and actually added in detail. It's when you get out into the sticks where it's just generates a random building, and it's like, yeah, I know for a fact that house isn't actually made out of red brick. That's just a regular double wide trailer house. But it's really, really cool. My father-in-law is coming over tomorrow night because he used to get the flight simulators because he had a stick, and he thought it was fun to like fly
planes.
And now he can just drop a plane anywhere on the planet and like go for it. And so he's pretty excited about that. I'm excited to kind of share that with him. I'm running the game on mostly high settings, and it can go higher than that for sure, at 4K.
Nice.
So it does look really good. There there is a bit of a learning curve. Like just like how sensitive the instruments are, and like looking at like all these dials and things, and I'm like, I don't know what this is, and it'll be like, bring up your landing gear, and I'm like, how?
What button does that?
Yeah, so there, at one point I was flying a 747, and my wife was like, they're yelling at you, and I'm like, yeah, but because like the radio control tower was like yelling at me for flying outside of airspace or something like that, and they're like, please reply, and I'm like, I don't know how. And Sam was like, what do you mean you don't know how? And I held up my Xbox controller. I'm like, I have this many buttons to control, and then I moved the pilot's head to look, the first person perspective, and it was just like rows of dials of buttons and like all these things. I'm like, to control all of this.
You gotta switch it to like simple controls and just cruise.
Yeah, I think I'm on like medium assist. So like it's, there's still like, I do have to pay attention, particularly in the smaller planes, to like do things. But I was trying some tricks like doing flips and loop-de-loops and things, and I flew a 747 upside down for a little bit. That was fun.
That's cool. I think what happened with Microsoft Flight Simulator is like they had the pitch, right? They're like, we're going to use big maps and do the world. and everybody's like, that's not going to work very well. And then when
100
it came
gigabytes
out
later,
and it worked pretty good, everybody was super like surprised.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those games you just kind of have to like see to believe how cool it is. I love being a part of the Reddit because people are constantly like, oh, there's a hurricane going on, let's go visit it. And so there'll be a bunch of screenshots of people like flying through hurricanes.
Yeah, I might have to do something like that because that would be interesting to fly through a storm.
Oh, you could go see like the firestorms and stuff too.
Yeah, I don't know how active, like. I think I could like. I think I would maybe see like the smoke, but I don't know like the satellite imagery in some like even in Minneapolis, a major stadium, which is now finished and built for a couple of years now, is still under construction according to the satellite data, and that's like in a pretty major metro area, and and it's that outdated. So I don't know if like I know so like it's drawing from satellite imagery, but it's also drawing from like weather patterns and like live updated weather, and so I think it's combining those. So like something like a hurricane and something like a fire are different things. Like one is like a weather pattern and one is like an unfortunate natural disaster,
because they can tap into like the weather center or something and get the data from there.
If anything, it might just register as like dark clouds above those areas. I don't know if I would actually see the fire. Because while it is gathering live weather data, it's not like rendering the actual storm itself. It's taking that data and simulating it.
Right. It's pretty wild though. People like flying through the eyes and seeing stuff.
I fired it up only expecting to play it for like 20 minutes, and 2 hours later, I was still like flying around my family's cabin and stuff. It was fun.
That's how I felt about BPM when I was playing it. I'm like, I'll play this for 20 minutes, and then 6 hours would go by. I'm like,
I think that's gonna be one of my next pickups, is because I've been watching people play it, and I really just want to play a rhythm shooting game a lot.
It's very, very good, I think. And
on top of that,
it's just gonna get better.
I'm doing the Outer Worlds new DLC, which is pretty fun. It's kind of like you're hired as a like private freelancer or whatever to go in and infiltrate this like company building to gather information to clear someone's name from some rich person or whatever. But it's pretty fun. People are running into an issue though where if the only save you have is after you've started the end game, you're kind of trapped there and you can't back out. But that's if you just hit continue. If you go in and actually load a game and scroll down, there should be one called a system save, which the game created on your behalf before you entered that, so that you could like go and wrap things up after the fact if you wanted to. And so I just used that, and then it worked just fine. I had to travel somewhere else, and then I was like, it doesn't show up automatically. Once you travel to somewhere else, it pings you that there's new content. I'm also still making my way through Ghost of Tsushima, and I've jumped into Star Wars: The Old Republic again.
The MMO?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
So I've never played those games. I told Eli I would play Knights of the Old Republic and downloaded it and just never played it. It's sitting here on my desktop. I'm looking at it.
You should stream it. It's a great game.
Yeah.
Is it the free-to-play one you're talking about, or?
Yeah, so you can, like, if you're a subscriber, you get a bunch of like benefits, like early access. Yeah. Like you can get mounts at like level 8 instead of 20, and more features. You get free money for the cartel.
The one that I'm talking about is like a straight up RPG.
Yeah, so you're talking about Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2. Both great, fantastic games. I think just because of my fandom of Star Wars, it's the only MMO that I've really stuck with ever. I played it a bunch last year, then kind of fell out of it, and lately Aaron Giddings, our friend from Marooners Rock, has been streaming it. And so I re-downloaded it and hopped in and joined him for a few quests. It was a good time. It's definitely fun to play with like a crew for sure, and it's built around that. But there's also a really solid like solo quest line for each class type. Mm-hmm. And so for like the 8 different like classes and paths, they each have their own like extended storylines that's like 40 hours long or at least. And so if you decide to play through every class, there's a decent amount of content there just story-wise solo. And that's not even getting into like the raid quests and events and like if you decide to start a crew and get a ship and all that stuff, the role-playing elements. It's pretty fun, and it is free to play. And then if you decide to become a subscriber, you get things early, and you get you get extra coins every month to play or to spend in the online store and stuff like that.
Also, considering free to play, like I've been playing the RPG Maker very, very seldomly on Switch, and so I hopped into it while you were talking to see if like people were uploading games. And there's one on here that's got a 5-star ranking, and it's in the monthly top or whatever. So I'm downloading that. Maybe I'll play through it and give you all an update on that.
Yeah.
And then I do want to play the RPG that we got, Paladin Dreams, because me and Zach were considering doing that as a review episode. And I think that would be really fun because, of course, this dude like just gave it to us randomly. And if we like popped in and did like a full-on review episode in the podcast and be like, this is how we would do audio episodes, I think that would be a great place to start because it's only like 2 or 3 hours long.
Interesting.
And so that's on our HIO account if you want it later, Joe.
Oh, okay.
We have a joint one of those.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll ask you about it later. But that pretty much...
that was a 4-star rating on this game.
Oh,
there isn't a 5-star rating. Oh, it says 5 stars here. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh, well, it can't be trusted. Just throw it all out.
But you guys can download it if you go pick up the RPG Maker player on Switch. That's a thing that you can do.
Oh, we lost his camera.
I think that was intentional.
Oh. Changing his clothes.
Maybe. Ooh.
Forever Classic After Dark.
I mean, it is that time of night, isn't it?
10:30.
So yeah, once we figure out what Zach's doing, we'll start back into the console discussion.
Yeah. So that's like the big news this week is we finally have prices and release dates.
And spec.
Yeah. And, you know, it kind of started with Xboxes getting leaked.
Yes, that's a great place to start this discussion because that was such a big moment, at least on social media and especially on Twitter.
So I also follow the director or like the social media director for Xbox.
It's Greenberg,
on Twitter.
Right?
What? Who?
Aaron Greenberg, is that his name?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but he was kind of like, how do I turn this into a positive experience for us? Mm-hmm. And they decided to just own it. They're like, yes.
Own it with memes.
Yeah, well, yeah, they like flooded it with the leak with memes, and then they like within like an hour or two, they made an official announcement on Twitter. Like, this isn't exactly the way we wanted to do it. We wanted to do a big video, like big reveal thing for everybody to make it exciting, but it's out there. There's no getting away around it. Here it is, the official announcement. Here's a graphic. There's 2 models. Here's the prices and the release date. And what a way to just like, you know what? We're not going to let this control us. We're not going to let them have power over us and our flow of information. We're just going to grab this right away and just run with it. And I think that's the smartest thing. Like,
it was definitely a very good call because that immediately went from just like people speculating and being like, okay, we probably know what it is, to being like, oh, we can be confident in this now and we can share it. And This was all happening super late at night. So in my time zone and Central Time Zone and in the East Coast as well, this was all like building at about midnight one night. And then, of course, by like 1 a.m., it was official. And then from there, they're like, here's all the info that you would ever want about Xbox.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember something I was following had pinged me about it, and I was like, oh, God. I was like, I got to work in the morning. I'll look at this later.
Well, in Marooners Rock, Andrew's like, hey, there's these rumors out. And he's like, you know, Matt Kay put out an article about it. And he's like, I think there's some validity to it. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Because half the time, whenever I get a rumor from somebody, it's like 90% false, right? But this time, it ended up being true.
Yeah,
and then we got even more like details, which is great.
That's a huge leak. Like, I do not envy being in that position where your like the biggest information reveal of your entire company for the year just gets leaked.
And there's a lot riding on Xbox right now. Like, they didn't do super great in Xbox One. They have a lot of players now, and a lot of people are using Game Pass, which is great, right? But there's a lot riding on it. And so with the cancellation of Halo, like, everything is just kind of like, it feels very delicate in the marketing perspective, at least to, our eyes.
Yeah.
But for what it was, I mean, I think they did a great job. And even with the reveal of the PlayStation 5, the official Xbox Twitter account, people were like, "Oh, what are we gonna pick?" And the Xbox account was like, "You know what? Whatever you pick is great. The PlayStation's cool, and we like what they're doing too.
Yeah.
But if you want, to play with a certain group of friends, or if you want to do like pick what's good for you, and if you end up getting a PlayStation first, that's fine. We'll always be here." So it was just really honest and just like
embracing of like the gamer, like video games are good, people. Don't let this like don't let us keep you from playing games with your friends. If being a PS5 owner would make you more satisfied in playing games, get a PS5. I'm just on this page. I've got it up on the stream here. 12 T-flops of power, and it really just took me back to the the Super Nintendo versus Genesis days.
Yeah.
Where the Nintendo Sega does what Nintendo don't, like T-flops of power.
So let's start with the Xbox then, as far as like prices and specs. So price-wise, let's start with the top. So you have the Xbox Series X, this chunk of a machine. It's $499.99 US dollars. And you can also go through this way to finance it called the Xbox All Access through Xbox, and you pay $34.99 a month. So aside from the other options that retailers have, like I'm sure GameStop has a thing where you turn in an Xbox, you can get certain credit towards a Series X.
Yeah.
But Xbox themselves are letting people do it and finance it. And I think that's really fascinating.
Just a big black tower.
Oh, it's a beast of a machine. And so it looks like a desktop PC is what it looks like. But so this thing is crazy cool. Like, it's got all the teraflops, right? It's got this
12
huge
of them.
processor.
It's got them T-flops, dude.
It's got an internal 1 terabyte. So it's not a solid state. It's a standard. Oh, it is a solid state. No, I misspoke. So it's a solid state 1 terabyte drive on this Series X. It'll probably come in different sizes later on. You can, of course, expand it like you would expect. And
proprietary
it goes
memory,
up to 4K.
though, with that.
On HDR, it can go up to 8K. And your Ultra HD Blu-rays that are like, fairly expensive ways to watch movies, but a great way to watch movies. It'll work just fine on your Series X. It has 4K Ultra HD, similar to the Xbox One X, I believe. And this thing will get up to 120 FPS, which is like crazy, and I don't think people are ready for it, honestly.
I don't either, but
most
the other
TVs
thing is,
aren't going to satisfy that.
Yeah, most TVs aren't going to be able to do it at all. So people who want that are going to have to spend a lot of extra, but that's from both sides. They're like, hey, here's your upward limit. And they're branding it as something that's going to be amazing and you can do it like right out of the box, but that's really not the case. So I don't think it's a big negative, but people just don't understand
I will say that if you're like a movie buff, something like this could be really the up to 8K HDR and 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray is huge because you can stream some 4K content, but it's not going to like there is a loss in quality for the bit rate in order to be able to even stream it. You have to have a really reliable internet. So if you really want that like true like 4K quality or displayed on an 8K HDR, like that,
you're gonna want that Blu-ray.
Yeah, like that disc media. And then for me, as someone who works in video, I like buying disc based simply one for the quality in both audio and in visual. But it's really the only way to get a lot of bonus features. The behind the scenes, you have to buy it.
Right, yeah.
And like
They started adding it to certain things, like in Disney Plus, they have some, deleted scenes and stuff you can interact with. But for the most part, there's so much good stuff on a Blu-ray, and I just like that experience.
For a huge chunk of the audience, though, they don't care. They're going to watch it on Netflix, and they're going to be fine with it.
But you can still watch through Netflix through the Xbox, which is fine. I mean, they haven't confirmed it, but it's coming. And just to put that into perspective, and this is something will probably come up in the PlayStation 5 discussion. If you go to Best Buy right now and just try to find a 4K Blu-ray player, there's one that Sony has for $249, and then LG has one for about $200. It's on sale right now for $180. So you're thinking about $150 at least to get a 4K Blu-ray player. You may as well just go ahead and get the Xbox, which is why the PS3 was such a big deal, because Blu-ray players are really expensive at the time.
Yeah.
So everybody just bought PS3s.
It's true.
Yeah, that's super true.
So the Series X is like a wildly cool system, I think, and honestly, and we'll get into what we want, but of course I've already talked about this. I want both systems at some point, right? So for me, getting the beefier system is the better choice, because I want the higher frame rates. I want to be able to capture the really, really good footage. I just hope it works, because so much of the Xbox experience for me is just super clunky. So if they can dial in that UI, make it a very fast and fluid system, that's really appealing to me, and it may be where I play most of my third-party stuff. Because compared to it and the PS5, I think when it comes to actual hardware, the Series X wins out. But the way that hardware is working in tandem, the PlayStation 5 might actually be better as far as graphical fidelity and stuff.
Well, the way they have their CPU, GPU, and RAM and hard drive all integrated, the access to the data is insanely fast.
Yeah. So I think even though the Series X has better parts in it, so to speak, I think because of all the integrations and the custom SSDs and all that, the PS5 will hit way above its weight. It'll be interesting to see which one has the louder fan, because the Xbox sites, it's got all these it's a big machine, and so there's plenty of places that you can vent the thing, and even that's one of the first things they talk about is the airflow, right? And so that was something that PS4 struggled with, is it sounds like a jet engine going off when you go to play Last of Us Part 2. And so I wonder, loudness-wise, how both will compare. Some people may just buy the Xbox Series S because it fits better on a shelf.
So this was a part of that announcement too, right? I didn't know there was going to be a second, or I guess, scaled down version.
We all knew it was coming, because at some point Xbox talked about a Project Lockhart, and that was supposedly the digital version. We just didn't know it'd be this cheap, and
it's really
powerful as it is.
It's really cheap. It does take a pretty hard sacrifice to the power, in my opinion.
This only has 4 T-flops.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's got 1/3 of the power of the big model. It's got 6 gigs less RAM. It's got 2 gigs less memory bandwidth. It's got half the storage, but you can still expand it with the proprietary expansion cards. So welcome back, memory cards.
Ugh. Those will be expensive. That's $100 purchase, I bet.
Right, and it won't do 8K.
Right, it does 4K, and it does...
It does 4K to 120, possibly.
Depending on the game.
Yeah, it's the up to 4K 120, but not the this is what I'll run at.
The S is where things get confusing, because PlayStation is much more straightforward about this. But the fact that they are able to get a powerful system, quote unquote, a next gen system for $300 is a very, very good play.
Yeah, that's
especially considering Game Pass.
Well, it's an extremely good introduction point for somebody who's interested in getting into gaming, because right now that's top of the line PlayStation. You could get the brand new system for the same price.
Yeah, and the each system, so the Series X, the Series S, they're compatible with your old Xbox One equipment. And so even if you pick up the Series S and decide to upgrade later, you're still going to get the brand new controller at least.
So I have seen some people predicting that Xbox may have stumbled here.
Really?
In that you've got the current generation, which is the One X and the One S, or whatever. And then now the next generation is Series X and Series X, but I think they're swapped.
No, they're the same. The S is the smaller one. I have one here. Okay. It's a very similar style box. Like it's a white. It's smaller.
But
it's got
the names, the naming convention is very similar.
Yes.
The S is basically an Xbox One in terms of like a lot of its like specs, like newer hardware and like, but it can use a lot of your Xbox One, or it can use your Xbox One stuff. But then there's the Xbox One X. I don't know. There's already people on Twitter that are already like getting the names confused and getting its like compatibility confused. Like I was seeing a discussion of people that were like, wait, when I buy games, if I buy an Xbox One or an Xbox Series S game, can I play it on the Xbox Series X? How does that work? Yes. And like, so like there's like things, but there are some games that have like that will have enhancements. So an Xbox One game will get a patch that has enhancements on the Series X specifically.
Oh yeah,
but it won't get those enhancements on the Series S. And so people are already thinking, wait, I have to buy a separate copy of the game to play it on. So like there's already this like level of confusion, and people are like, man, I feel sorry for people who work at video game stores. I feel bad for people who work at Best Buy. I feel bad for Microsoft call center because they are going to get calls nonstop about this confusion. Thinking about a parent trying to buy a Christmas gift for their kid and they bought the wrong console.
It is the Wii and the Wii U all over again.
That was what a lot of people were comparing it to. So hopefully through some smart marketing,
about the messaging right now.
Through some smart marketing and through some like maybe color variation in the marketing to really clarify which is the current generation and which is the more powerful hardware.
And if I'm not mistaken, they've already started taking the Xbox One X, so the beefier of this current generation, off the shelves in a lot of places.
Okay.
And so because of that, you may end up with a situation where you have the Xbox One S, the Xbox Series S, and the Xbox Series X on the same shelf, right? They'll be like, hey, look, if you want to spend $150, $200, you can get the original Xbox. It'll play a lot of the same games. But if you want the Series S or the next generation, you're right. It's all very confusing because like it also, you have to have a good imagery on the box of the game to show what system it works for.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I just was checking out while we've been talking is, because I never calculated anything in teraflops before everybody's marketing campaign. It was just like, what the fuck is a teraflop? It's just how many thousands of calculations can happen in 1 second.
Oh yeah. Okay.
That's really all it is.
T-flops, man.
So Series S is what, 4 point something? Like so is the PlayStation 4 Pro.
Okay.
They're identical on teraflop level. So the baseline model of that is as much as like our PS4 Pro. I don't know where the Xbox ones are yet because I'm not there, but that's not even next gen yet. So it's dialing down its brain to last gen.
And if we haven't made it clear, the Series S is a discless, digital-only console.
Yep.
Which I think in many ways is appealing for, certain crowds.
It would make an excellent, like I could see tossing one of these at your like family vacation home, where you might not need like the full console, but you'll want to play a game maybe if it's rainy outside or something. But it's your secondary console setup. So,
and at the end of the day, it is a cheaper way to get access to next gen, and I think that's really appealing for a lot of people.
Yeah, they had to make it like competitively pricing for people to like get into, because if you have the price of your console too high, like in a lot of ways, Xbox is kind of competing with themselves with PC.
Yeah.
And so they've got to calculate that into their considerations.
Now here's also something to consider. The whole financing option that we had for the Xbox Series X, for the Series S, it's $24.99 a month for 24 months, and that includes 24 months of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So you can get the console, pay for it in a couple years, and on top of that, just have access to your online, get your Game Pass. That's really good for, a lot of people.
And that's Game Pass Ultimate, so that includes the PC side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the mobile, once that goes fully live.
The xCloud, yep. So Xbox is really establishing this ecosystem. And that's what they've been working on for a long time. And they've already got really good connections as far as server speeds, at least for us Americans. But that's where we're gonna see the money hit the road, I think. And so
everywhere except for iPhone.
There's
they're working on that.
There's a decent number of places in rural Minnesota that don't have access to reliable enough internet to invest in a digital only console.
Right. And that's kind of my stance about especially me being from, a rural area, even though it's cheaper, it's still going to be more appealing for somebody that lives in a rural area to get one with the discs.
Yeah.
And luckily we have two consoles at the same price. So let's talk about the PlayStation 5. Big flashy video, lots of games were showed off. They gave us the price. They did a bunch of cool zooming in, the Sony touch, as it were. And so the PlayStation 5 is coming in at $499.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the digital version is coming in at $399.
So there is $100 difference, and the only difference in hardware is the disk drive. It doesn't take away from the performance like the Series S does.
That's literally the only difference is that disc.
Yes.
And again, we were looking at it, $150, $200 is what you would pay for a 4K Blu-ray player anyways.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's basically what they took off. They were like, drop $100 off the price tag. We got this.
So with that, though, not only does it have a pretty decent lineup for day one release titles, or at least launch window titles.
Let's compare those later. But for now, the actual stats,
they're identical.
They're very similar.
I think in some ways the PS5 loses some speed, but its ability to it doesn't need to be as fast because it's traveling data in multiple channels at once. The way that it reads its hard drive, and so while it's reading over here, it can just easily grab this one thing over here and put it there. And that's what we're seeing in the Ratchet and Clank is the quick switching between. It'll load a whole level at once. And in terms of rendering, once you jump through that portal, it just quickly grabs that portion of the level and just brings it to you.
Yeah,
and so,
it's basically simultaneously loading everything at once.
Yeah, and it's traveling through multiple channels the way that it thinks. So I don't think it's I don't think it's quite as fast in terms of raw power, but it's doing it 3 times or whatever.
Yeah, you don't. There's a hard cap to just your raw power in this type of equipment, because if we're multi-threading, which is pulling from multiple sources at the same time at an equal speed, or up to an equal speed, that's great. You don't need one giant brain doing all the work. You've got it doing 5 brains doing the same work. You don't need the extra speed because now you're making up for the speed by 5 times.
Now, when it comes to the actual hardware of the system, one of the things that I think is most interesting about the PlayStation is, 1, they cite audio as being a big part of what they're doing. And 2, the DualSense controller is it's got a lot of features in it that the Xbox controller just doesn't.
That haptic feedback is going to be really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the haptic sense and the adaptive triggers both, I think, could add a lot to certain games, but surely we're not going to see it in every game.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. So that's basically what it is when you're pulling the trigger, after a certain point, it'll resist you to a certain point, and then it'll release it.
Yes. So the programmers can program the actual resistance of your trigger pull.
Yeah.
So if you're playing a game where you have like a sniper rifle or whatever, you can make that a hair trigger pull, and it simulates whatever weapon you're doing to really like play with that. Anybody that's doing a realistic shooter, like say a Call of Duty or something, making those triggers actually comparable to the legitimate weapons, I think would be a cool detail.
Which could either excite players or really annoy them, because it might be throwing off the way that they're used to playing shooters.
Yeah, and maybe it's something that you can like adjust in the settings, but that's the type of thing I think of. And they always say that, pulling a bowstring or whatever, you actually feel the tension behind the bow, and of course that's cool. But like, I don't know. I think the DualSense is going to be a really interesting way to connect the player to the game without doing the VR headsets and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. But I think most of it is too is that they want those features available for game devs to play with.
Yeah.
And so
it's built in.
Yeah, those tools are available. Like, we don't expect every developer to use them, but if you're developing on ours, we want to make sure that you want to provide, like, everything's there and in place for you to provide immersive 3D audio for the players that have a headset that supports it or a surround sound system. We want to make sure that the immersion of the like resistant triggers is there and the haptic feedback to really like pull you in. And maybe we might see a PSVR 2 released down the line that really like brings all these elements together.
PSVR was more successful than they had thought it would be based on the initial run, I think.
Well, look at previous attempts to like Sony has dipped into other like trending like formats. Like, look at the PlayStation Move and the PlayStation cameras.
Yeah, it did.
Those those did not do well.
No,
and
the tech worked technically. It's just it wasn't successful.
Well, like the games that came out for it weren't. They were just like, hey, this is what they're doing on Wii. Well, a huge portion of the Wii library was garbage, and so that doesn't tell you anything. Nobody was able to really utilize it successfully, but PSVR worked really well.
Now, one thing to consider if you're somebody that's like really budget conscious about these systems is the DualShock 4 controller that you're using on your PS4 will technically work on the PS5, but only for PS4 games. And so if you're trying to play PS5 games, it seems like that's not going to be supported, at least not at launch. I mean, it could definitely work later. And they actually cite in an article from USA Today, I'm reading this headline from Josh Rivera, and he specifically listed that PS5 is currently working at certain peripherals, so things like fight sticks, racing wheels, those should work just fine. The platinum and gold wireless headsets that you see available, those will still work. But the DualShock 4 itself is what's going to be like hit and miss, unless you're playing PS4 games, of course. And apparently, according to this, the PlayStation Move controllers, the PSVR aim controller, that's going to work with supported PSVR games on the PS5. Because you can still access your PSVR, so you might even be able to hook your PSVR into the PS5. That's a good question.
I believe that's what they said it was going to do, was you were going to be able to take that and just plug it straight into the next console.
But it's on the website, PSVR integration. Connect your PS4 to the PS5 and your PSVR games. Cool.
So I think one of the like other draws, like, so people talk about PlayStation, its exclusives are one of the highlights of the console. Even in the last couple of years, we've had a number of very successful exclusives for the console. And you could, like, what's cool is you could buy your PS5, and if you're like tight on budget and don't really have money for a game, you walk home with your PlayStation 5 and you have access to like 19 PS4 games out of the box. Because
provided you get PlayStation Plus.
Provided you get PlayStation Plus. So it
should come with a free month, so everybody should have it.
But what they're saying is PlayStation Plus on your PS5 will not cost any more than it already does. It will be the same. You will continue to receive your benefits that you experience on PS4. and you get this collection of games. So if you're new to PlayStation and you've been thinking about it, or maybe you've been looking at maybe picking up a PS4 so you can finally play some of these exclusives for cheap, it might be worth it to just grab a PS5 and get all of them included. That's and a good collection
most
of
them
games.
will have some enhancements as well. Like the original God of War will probably, look nicer on the PS5 and such and such.
Highlights are definitely God of War, Monster Hunter World.
And it is cheaper than the Xbox Game Pass, so it's $10 a month rather than the $25.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's specifically Game Pass Ultimate, because Ultimate includes the online thing. I think you can get Game Pass a la mode, though.
And it's a good, it's a good variety of games, too. There's some first-person shooters here. There's some action games. There's some...
Bloodborne.
RPGs with Persona 5. It's a horror game with Until Dawn. It's a pretty well-curated list of...
Mm-hmm.
PS4 titles being brought to PS5, and that's
one of the better ones.
That's out of the box. Mortal Kombat X fighting game. So there's a little
that's not the newest one, but it's definitely the one before it.
Yeah, so there's a good collection there. If you're not able to quite pick up if the game you want to get isn't out yet.
Oh, my apologies. I think that Game Pass Ultimate's actually $15 a month.
Yeah, it's comparable.
Yeah, so I mean they're similar, but obviously Nintendo's is the cheapest, but it offers the least amount. So.
No, those Super Nintendo games are worth it, dude.
So let's talk about launch lineup, because there's some interesting details here, and I just want to toss in a couple weird ones. So for one, we do know that Godfall is going to be available at launch, and I guess we can say that the launch for the PS5 is November 12th. Xbox's is 2 days prior to that, I think. I think it's November 10th.
So looking at this list on GameSpot, Godfall's the only one that's specifically listed console exclusive. I'm wondering
it's coming to PC as well, because I have the tweet from the actual Godfall account verifying it. And so it's coming to PS5 and the Epic Game Store specifically on November 12th, which is the launch day of the PS5.
Interesting that would be the one that's called out specifically as console exclusives, which makes me wonder if the rest of these are going to be PS4 too?
Godfall is a PS5 thing, so it's not going to be available on PS4. Some of these games are, though. Like Miles Morales. But
you were saying it was also coming to PC, which does not make it a console exclusive.
Right, yeah. So some of the information that we have here may be slightly out of date, and so as soon as that PlayStation video came out, we got so many random details that should have been in that video. Many of them came from Jeff Keighley, which was really weird. So in that ways, I loved that video because it had a lot of exciting moments. We didn't even talk about that. It announced Final Fantasy 15 or 16, and that was really cool. But there's so many little details they forgot to mention.
Yeah,
and so Godfall,
Spider-Man Miles Morales is confirmed to be a PS4 release as well as a PS5 release.
Yes, it's also coming to PS4.
Now, is it its separate game, or is it just going to be a large chunk attached to the other?
It's a totally separate standalone game.
Using similar technology they used to make the first one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's more like Uncharted Lost Legacy than anything, but it's supposed to be a lot longer than that.
Dang, that was a good game. I like that game.
Also, so let's just run down the lineup here in this GameSpot article. So we're looking at how do PS5 and Xbox Series X current launch lineups compare to previous generations, written by Alessandro Fayari. I'm sorry if I messed that up, bud. But so on the PlayStation 5, we have Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Astro's Playroom, which is the same little character that we saw in the Astrobot series, and so that would be really cute. We have Bug Snacks, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. The big one for me here, this is the biggest one, and probably the first thing I'm going to buy for the PS5. That's Demon's Souls, the remake from Blue Point Games.
Yes.
We got some footage, and it looks great.
It does.
Yes. It's going to be just as hard.
Yeah. There's also a game called Destruction All Stars, which I'm not super familiar with.
I don't know if I've even heard of that one.
It is. Is this the like Destruction Derby one? Hang on, I've got the trailer here going. Otherwise, we got Dirt 5, an increased version of Devil May Cry, so you can play as Virgil now. That's really cool. Immortals Phoenix Rising, FIFA 21. Jet the Far Shore, which I'm actually not familiar with either. Madden NFL 21, which everybody's not super great on. We get Marvel's Avengers, Spider-Man Miles Morales, NBA 2K21, Outriders from Square Enix, Sackboy: A Big Adventure. That one's really cool because that's not Media Molecule doing that one. We also get WRC 9 and Watch Dogs Legion, and I, for some reason, think Legion might end up getting delayed, but we'll see. Yeah, so Destruction All-Stars is a Destruction Derby style game. Kind of looks like Rocket Knight. That's a lot more realistic, of course, but you're running around blowing up each other. That could be fun.
So then for Xbox, we've got Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, Call of the Sea, Crossfire X, The Falconeer, FIFA 21.
Oh, that one looks cool. I saw some footage on Falconeer. And Crossfire X is that, like, and it's like a Call of Duty style shooter, but I think the story mode is being made by Remedy.
Gears?
Yes, yeah, Remedy's.
Okay. Gears Tactics is an interesting choice, as it's been out for a little while now.
Yeah.
But, you know, I hope they enhanced it in a way that really makes it appealing to pick up a tactics game on a next-gen console. Immortals Phoenix Rising, Madden 21, Marvel's Avengers, The Medium. I don't know if I'm familiar with that one.
That's the Silent Hill style one. So it's by the team that did Layers of Fear. It's Bloober Team, but they got a lot of influence from Silent Hill 2. They got one of the composers from Silent Hill 2. So this one has potential.
NBA 2K21, Tetris Effect, Connected, Outriders,
which is actually super cool.
Second Extinction, Watch Dogs Legion, WRC 9, and Yakuza Like a Dragon, timed next-gen exclusive.
Yeah, so Yakuza will eventually come to PlayStation, but we're getting on Xbox first.
So
it's already available in Japan.
Yeah, I think Like a Dragon is coming out for current generation, but it's coming to Xbox Series first as a next-gen.
As far as the next-gen upgrades. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it looks fun as hell. I mean, wacky Yakuza humor kind of cranked up to 11.
I'm so excited for this game.
Yeah, it looks really fun. For me, the big one in the Xbox list is definitely The Medium. That game looks incredible.
Yeah, The Medium looks terrifying, and I'm going to love it.
Right?
We're going to make Joe play it.
No, I'm going to play Yakuza Like a Dragon and have fun.
Hard no.
You're going to play The Medium with a PS4 headset on.
But to me, this lineup would have looked so tastier with Halo, right? Like, it just would have been so much better.
Yeah,
I mean, honestly,
it's
I
a
think
really
the lineup
unfortunate.
looks weird.
It's really unfortunate.
Weighted strangely.
But I think it would have been worse if they had kept it on there and it wasn't done.
Yeah.
Like, that would have destroyed the series. It could have destroyed the console. And so delaying it sucks and it looks weird, but it has to be the right call. Like,
I mean, I feel weird about their launch lineup, period.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I feel like PlayStation's is strong. I'm not overly surprised. I mean, there's always a Call of Duty, always a Madden, always a FIFA, always an NBA. With PlayStation, there's always a Sackboy.
Yeah.
No matter who's in charge of it. And there's usually been an Assassin's Creed. So, like, you know, everybody's kind of touching all of those bases. And then it's just kind of like, what's the other odd spice you're putting in?
Well, PlayStation has bug snacks, so...
Well, when the PS4 came out, the launch lineup was kind of lacking. And it was the same with, like, the PS3 and even the PS2. But this time we get Demon's Souls, we get Spider-Man. Like, I think this is a great launch lineup.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, out of the two of them, I think PlayStation's is far stronger.
And within a couple of months...
I just feel like they're both weird for some reason. They don't look like the tastiest thing in the world to me.
Okay.
Like, there's one or two pieces of it that sound fantastic, but No,
See,
the
I gotta
whole
get
thing
that
is a
Demon
package.
Soul. That's like the number one thing for me in either system.
Yeah,
So
and
I'm
Spider-Man is like the original Spider-Man is one of my favorite games of all time. I absolutely
yeah,
love that game. I
it was
loved it
really
enough
fun.
to actually get the platinum for it.
Oh,
But the fact that it's already coming out on PS4 already, I can wait on a PS5 just like from a financial perspective. Like there's nothing selling like there's nothing hardcore selling me a PS5 right this second because I have a PS4 already. And so
yeah.
I'm not like ready for this. I also dropped a buttload of money on a new PC this year, and I've got plenty of games to play on it that look great. I,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, already feel like I'm kind of already hitting that next gen.
That's true. Yeah.
You
So I
know,
guess that kind of leaves our conclusionary thoughts. I mean, are you planning on getting one, both, either? Stick with PC, stick with
eventually a
Switch?
PS5. I will likely never get an Xbox because of my PC.
Yeah, you can
And
play those games
the
on PC.
integration that they've got with Xbox with the Game Pass is brilliant. I don't need an Xbox. I can play my Xbox games on my PC,
Mhm.
and my PC will probably play them better than the Xbox.
My counter argument to that is when you're playing games on PC, there's always something to tinker with, like something's not rendering right, you got to turn on VSync, whatever. In
I
consoles,
like that stuff
99% of the time,
though.
you stick a game in, you play it, and it goes, right? And so for me, like, even though I can access Gears 5 right now on my PC, I think that playing Gears 5 would be a more enjoyable experience on the Series X, and that would likely carry over into 6. Now, when it comes to the actual launch lineups, Demon Souls has swayed me entirely. Like, the PS5 is the first thing that I want to get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, like looking at the everything overall, I think that Xbox's cheap console is going to be a great way to get into the
Hmm.
new generation, but you're going to sacrifice enough power that it's going to be equally as strong as the current like Xbox One X or whatever. And it's not going to be you're not going to have much more power with the lower gen. You go the higher gen, it's going to be great. Like you're going to have the top of the line power just like you will with the PS5. But either way, when you go with the Xbox, you're now going to be stepping into buying memory cards again.
Yeah, that's another
I
big
think
point.
I think some of it is going to come down to like the like all both sides have options that I think are really appealing to people in all different like states of thought towards next gen.
Yeah,
Whether be digitally only or like a budget version of the console that you can like play the current gen on and upgrade. The idea maybe to upgrade later or to buy a second system later. Um, but I think what it might come down to is reliability. If one of these consoles comes out of the gate with a high failure rate or a common
that's a
issue
problem.
with a
Yep.
common issue, like I think.
Looking at you, Xbox, and your Red Ring of Death.
But the thing
Well,
is
we're
look
in
at how
such a weird
successful the Xbox
situation right
still was. Like it was still a very successful console, and I think some of it is
now. Yeah.
because it was the cheaper option.
Well, they
It was
also
less
lost a
of a
lot of money on
blow
that.
to lose an
It's
Xbox.
true. I only went to PlayStation because my 360 that I had bought originally wouldn't work. We went
See, I
through
stuck with 360 because mine was fine.
we tried a
Surprisingly.
bunch of stuff and they would red ring. A bunch of my friends all red ringed and none of us went back to it. We wouldn't touch Xbox product like that again.
My
Yeah.
PS so my that generation for me, I had one roommate that had an Xbox 360 and one roommate that had a PS3. We all played the PS3 more regularly. Um, I didn't get a PS3 until after the PS4 came out.
Me too. I got it way later because I was working at GameStop at the time and got one cheap.
Well, during that time of my life, it was all about those handheld consoles. I was on the bus or at
Yes.
school all the time. And if I was at home, I wasn't really up for firing up a game. I was working on homework and
Speaking
stuff like
of
that.
handhelds, how different would you feel if Nintendo suddenly was like, "Hey, we're doing a 4K Switch in March"?
I'd
Would
consider
that
it.
prevent you from buying either console in that like 3-month period? Because to me, I like the Switch so much, and the fact that you can, take it and stick it into whatever.
So
I
if
could actually
a week before the
maybe wait.
PS5 comes out and Nintendo's like, "Hey, 4K Switch in March,"
Yeah,
and you're like, "Cancel that pre-order. I'll wait."
maybe. Because, I mean, think about it. Like, how handy has the Switch been to me? I played lots of games on it. There's plenty of review opportunities. And, I mean, ultimately, that's why I'm buying any of these systems, right? Because I want to have options for reviews and content creation.
What I'll also add is I'd already decided I wasn't going to be getting a PS5 like right away. It might be a year or 2 years in even. But just out of curiosity, since everyone was complaining about it, I just jumped on Best Buy, and I successfully got one in my cart, and I could have pre-ordered it. I was like, and this was like 6 hours into everybody saying they were completely sold out. I just like decided to see if I could try, and it worked. And I was like,
better. And Xbox made a jab. They're like, here's how we're doing pre-orders. It's very straightforward. It's like the 23rd, I think, is when they're opening them up. But my plan is just like sometime in October, if I have the money, I'll go down and put the $50 down or whatever to secure one at a GameStop, and I'll just get it at a GameStop.
Yeah, what I think happened with that, money up front. What I think might have happened with that is Sony, I don't think intended to like surprise people. I just think that they didn't have a harsh enough retail like contract. So the retailers were like, didn't have things in place to have to obey a pre-order date. So they were just let it loose. They were like, oh, it's been announced. Blam, you want to order it? Whereas it seems like Xbox is like, yeah, do not sell pre-orders to this console until this date. Or else.
But as far as straight games, the PlayStation's more appealing to me. Because we have things like Horizon coming up. We have Ratchet & Clank. We have God of War 2. So those are the games that like really capture my interest and my imagination, and I think that's ultimately where I'll be, is on the PlayStation. I want to be surprised by Xbox.
God of War, no joke, one of the best thought out teasers I've ever seen, and all it did was show a logo. It just like slowly faded in, and you're kind of like wondering, oh, what is that? And then it like dawns on you, oh, that's the Omega symbol from God of War. And it's got Viking runes on it. Hell yes! And then like the music rises up and then it's over and you're like, I'm so excited. And all they did was show me a logo.
I mean, based on finishing the game, you knew a sequel was coming, right?
Oh, absolutely. And so, but it was just a matter of when. As
soon as that started up, I was like, oh, God of War 2, of course. And I wish we would have got a little more, but we got like some voice reels and we got the music, so...
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
That game's gonna get done, right? It's not like Metroid where they're like, we kind of screwed up. We got to start over.
Well, it kind of seems like they have a very clear vision for that story based off the way the first one ended. And
I'm stoked. I love that game.
Like, it's going in, and they knew that with the popularity of. Like, there was some writing on it because they knew they were going to do a multi-part thing. And if they didn't do well with it, they were never going to get that second game to finish what the story they wanted to tell. But, that clearly that team put a lot of energy into making a great product. It has some of the most satisfying combat. More people
get to experience it now. If they pick up the PS5, didn't have a PS4, you get that PlayStation collection going.
I could see people like... you go in and you buy your PS5 and say Spider-Man or one of the other launch games, and you go home and you fire up God of War first just to see if it's better.
Yeah. For me, it's going to be, as soon as I get it, Demon Souls. That's the world I want to jump into.
Well, I look forward to the 3 days of nonstop streaming that you're going to do.
Like, possibly.
Man, April was such an insane time for you because you were like, Resident Evil 3, done. Final Fantasy VII, done. And it was like in a span of a week.
Doom Eternal was in there too. That was
that's right. You did like all 3 of those games in like the span of a month, and you did them like one weekend at a time.
It was so cool. But so I'm more into the PlayStation camp. But like I said, 4K Switch, upgrade to the Switch, I would have to get that. So we'll see. But all right, guys, so that does it for our console discussion. I hope everybody at home had a fun, just like experience with us going through the different details. And I'm sure there's lots more details to learn. There's interviews to be done. And so if you're into this sort of thing, definitely keep an eye out on, all the various websites, our website as well. We typically don't focus on some of the bigger things because people cover that news better than us. So a lot of our news is still going to be in the space that it's always been.
Yeah.
But regardless, we're excited for the new generation, I think.
Well,
if
we're
you're
gamers.
playing on
Why wouldn't
PC,
we be?
Yeah. And so my plan is still get either, and every major console that's going to be available is my plan. And it has been my plan for a long time. So that's my approach. But so regardless, you'll see some review content of PS5, Series X at some point on this channel. But until next time, if anybody wants to hang out with us, check out foreverclassicgames.com. You can sign up on our Discord there. You can find our Twitter. You can send us an email at theforeverclassicpodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, send us a message or something and let us know if there's a particular game you want to cover or if you have an interesting story. We're always interested in seeing what the community is fascinated by. And I will also add that if you're a developer trying to reach us, it's usually easier to do that through Twitter. So Forever X Classic, or for me at AC McCumpers. And I think DMs are open on both accounts. But all you have to do is just say, hey, we sent you an email, or hey, we'd like for you to review our game, and we'll hopefully get to that as soon as we can. We have a long list of things we're doing, though.
So, do we want, I guess, other content to keep an eye out for is Zach might have a new series coming up here pretty soon that might be pretty interesting if people are interested.
We can tease that.
But
the film thing.
Yeah.
So hopefully that will turn into something exciting.
Zach still looks confused.
No.
Okay. You were just like, huh? What?
But no, guys, if somebody wanted to find you on the internet, Joe, where might they do that?
Best place to find me is the Daddy Gamer on Twitter, or if you want to check in on some of my specific content, Daddy Gamer YT on Twitch, or Daddy Gamer Reviews on YouTube.
Sweet.
We do daddy-daughter based streaming and episodes. I finally think I came up with an idea for the new episode of the show. It's been a long time, but I'm kind of excited about this concept, and I think it could really work. With us buying a new house, we got to make sure it's not haunted. So what better way to do research than to play the Ghostbusters video game?
That's a cute idea.
And so I think that's going to be the next episode, is us going back and forth between talking about the game and us ghost hunting kind of.
You should have her watch the movies too, like the classic movies.
No joke, for about a year and a half when she was 3 years old, the original Ghostbusters was her favorite movie.
Oh yeah.
She would literally state, "This is my favorite movie," and she got mad at my mom, her grandma, because my mom was like, "Well, what movie do you want to watch?" And she brought her Ghostbusters. And then got mad because she's like, "Well, I don't know if your parents want you watching Ghostbusters." And she's like, "It's my favorite movie."
That's funny. And Zach, where might people find you, man?
I'll be Exquisite Liar everywhere on the internet except for Twitter, and I'm Exquisite_Liar there.
Very cool.
What about you, Alex? What if someone wanted to find you?
I said it already. You people rewind the tape. You can figure it out. Go to the description box. We usually have a pretty detailed description box. And yeah, so for everybody at home, I mean, stay safe, stay cool. Please just keep the pandemic in mind. Please go vote here pretty soon.
Yeah.
And of course, we will catch you when we see you. Lots of great things happening, of course. The gears keep on spinning.
Of course, play some
here
games.
Forever Classic Games. We're excited to just be in this medium and be in this space, and we hope you enjoy the ride.